Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios, the finale of the Terminax of Invasion Overkill story and the community redraw. Let's hop in and see what gets redrawn today.
Welcome to the finale of the three-part community redraw and story, Terminax Invasion Overkill. By the way, yes, I lost my voice a little bit while recording this episode, but in the actual story, I think it's only really noticeable in like the last 5 minutes or so. Anyway, the first...
it's barely noticeable even now.
First episode in this series involved subscriber-submitted famous monsters turned into xenomorphs.
Love it.
Episode 2 was street-level superheroes turned into bounty hunters.
Very
and
cool.
for part 3, I laid out some specific original design.
Bustal's upgrade and Ivada's, I'm sorry, I have trouble with that name, new pet.
That I needed to be made that I knew would be worked into this storyline. So I'm going to show off the submissions for those, do the designs for them, and actually I work in a couple more of the Xenomorph submissions because I wanted to make this a big, cool finale splash piece.
Xenochew or Pikamorph?
I needed some more critters running around.
Xenochew.
So let's get into the story, shall we?
Let's go.
Hit
Hit
like
like if you want. Subscribe if you feel like it. But either way, enjoy the show.
Aviva quickly punched in the pass
Eviva. Damn it, I feel like I'm having trouble saying that damn name.
key to the large metallic
Anyway,
cabinet
interesting
before her.
pets.
The doors split, pulling sideways out from the middle, and steam billowed from inside.
Ooh.
There were multiple tools, weapons, and items lining the inner doors, but Aviva could tell what she was looking for was the armor right in the middle.
Oh,
She
yeah.
looked at it in awe for a moment, but then heard Bustar growling in pain from outside.
Oh, crap, right.
Okay, Ship, what now? Through the earpiece Bustar had given her, Ship said,
There is a seamless latch on the upper middle of the chest. Please tap that space 3 times. The latch will open to reveal a button that you will need to hold for 7 seconds.
Oh,
Aviva
perfect.
did as instructed while saying, This looks like armor for Bustar to wear, but you said you can use this thing as a vessel, right? The pink
got
visor
a
of the
power
suit
suit
lit
now.
up and Ship responded, but now through the speakers of the suit.
Yes, the adamantine beast armor is only at full strength when
Oh,
being
wow.
used by Bustar. It has
Adamantium. Okay, so that's cool. Well, also, kind of impressive you could get that much of it.
propulsion boots and increases his strength and durability enough to make him able to stop a charging Arborian Pelrota in its tracks and single-handedly overpower a Zerg Ultralisk.
Whoa.
It is not quite at that power.
Whoa, okay, hold on. To just kind of pause and explain that. C just said that suit is strong enough to stop a rampaging cannon bolt from Ben 10 and a Zog Ultralisk. Now, I've played both games. I'm not a big fan of the first one because there's a limit of how many units you can man at one time, only 12, that kind of sucks. But I've played, loved, and beaten the second one. And let me just tell ya, you cannot win against a Zog Ultralisk without enough firepower to surround that thing. So to have a suit that can somehow throw it around? God blessed!
Power level when I control it myself, but I should still be a significant aid in this conflict. So,
Oh look, that was Overkill. Huh. Well, that's not surprising what I thought he'd look like, but that's actually kind of cool.
how shall we proceed?
Part of Aviva had hoped Ship would have a plan, but there was no time to debate what to do. Overkill was clearly trying to get out of Bustar where the offspring was, and he definitely wasn't being gentle about it. Aviva ran to the opposite side of the room from the window and set the baby Ketovadis' cage down on a rare clear part of a desk. Looking at the creature up close still gave her chills. It was a little cute, but it was also still a Ketovadis. Aviva
It's just a
said,
baby, thankfully.
Ship, the big Ketovadis listens to Bustar. Does that mean this one might understand me and listen too? The suit, now controlled by Ship, stepped out of the cabinet and opened and closed its fingers.
Theoretically, the offspring should have comparable intelligence and abilities to its elder, meaning it should be able to understand everything you are saying to it.
I mean, it is still a baby though, so it would have some trouble understanding.
While I can make no guarantees about how it is feeling, as there was no reason to suspect this creature was even going to be born when it was 8 days ago, it does appear to have developed some
It's only 8 days old, God bless!
affection for you in the short time you've known it.
Aviva looked at the creature, which was pressed up against its cage, staring at her and purring. Aviva hesitated, but knew she didn't have time to do that long. Okay, look, Keto? Yeah, Buster's calling your dad Vada. I'll call you Keto. The creature
That
chirped.
actually would make a lot of sense. Keto Vade? Keto? It's like get on, look on.
Eagerly. Cool. Okay, yeah, Keto. I'm no help down there if I'm carrying you around, but if I leave you caged up in here and Overkill has any more hunters helping him, then you could get snatched too easily. I'm gonna let you out so you can run away or fight if you need to, but I also need you to stay right here unless anyone comes for you. And I also need you to not try and kill me. To her
Yeah,
surprise,
don't
the
kill
little
me.
creature nodded its head vigorously. Aviva was still frightened of the little creature,
All right.
knowing what its father could do,
Here
but
goes.
she was somewhat assured seeing it nodding in clear understanding. She slid the latch on the cage and opened it. The creature clambered out and sat on top of the cage. Okay, yeah, there, so
that's
just
kinda
stay
cute.
here, alright, Keto? Again, the creature nodded. Aviva turned away, and the second she did, Keto sprang past her off the cage, bounded to the window, and started clambering down the side of the building
Oh
towards
my
the
God.
hunters below.
Keto!
Oh, come on!
Damn it, Vito. No! Why?
Ship, go free Bustar from Overkill. I'll keep Keto safe. Ship sprang towards the window and tackled through what little glass was left. The beast armor shot down like a rocket and cracked the pavement as it landed, a few feet away from Overkill, who was digging his claws into Bustar's shoulder, while the hooded hunter held Terminax bound in his glowing rope weapon. They all
damn.
turned to Ship, who said,
Hello. Please release Bustar and step away from him. While I am not inclined towards physical confrontations, my priority is Bustar's well-being,
Oh.
and I will use force if need be to ensure his safety.
Overkill pulled his claws out of Bustar.
Oh, Busty, has it really gotten that lonely for you that you had to make yourself a friend? That's just about the saddest
Hey, now.
thing I've ever seen, brother.
He pulled a long, sparking revolver off his belt and aimed it at Ship.
It'll be even sadder when I turn that junk into so much scrap metal.
Yeah, good
Meanwhile,
luck.
Aviva had popped the blades out of her forearms
Like, from what he said, that's meant to be an adamantium suit.
and was using them to claw her way down the side of the building. She knew it was pretty conspicuous, but hoped Ship would have the others distracted enough to not notice her. Unfortunately, not everyone was distracted. Aviva was down to the second floor when she saw, in some of the cracked and busted glass, the reflection of a glowing yellow arm swinging up behind her. She turned to see
Uh-oh.
that, despite the hand of his metal arm being severed, the glowing-fisted hunter was soaring towards her, with his arm cocked back for a strike.
Oh,
Aviva
crap,
retracted
him.
her blades and just dropped. The hunter smashed his stump arm into the wall, and concrete exploded off the impact, pelting Aviva's face as she fell to the ground. Her legs buckled as she landed, but she quickly scrambled back
Damn, I wasn't expecting the Iron Hunter to still be a part of this.
up and ran out of the way before any big debris could fall on her. That impact got everyone's attention, and Overkill turned his sights on Aviva. She was looking for Keto, and saw that the little creature had run over to its father, who was pinned to the ground with 4 large metal staples clamping around its body. Keto was slashing at one of them with her own tail blade, and was nearly halfway through carving it apart. Overkill cheered.
There's the little rascal, Denny.
Oh, damn it.
Fetch.
The glowing-armed hunter landed on the ground and used his tail to help him spring up, leaping over Aviva as she was headed for Keto. Aviva ran faster behind him, trying to catch up. He landed and instantly whipped his body around and swung his foot towards Aviva's head. She raised her arm blades to carve his foot, but without her even seeing it happen, he lowered his kick and struck her in the stomach instead,
Oh.
ripping the wind from her lungs and sending her flopping backwards.
Damn,
She
that's
thudded
always
hard
hot.
onto her back and choked in air. Meanwhile, Overkill fired 3 electric bolts from his revolver at the beast armor's head, chest, and crotch. They struck hard enough to make Ship stumble backwards, but did no real damage. Ship marched forwards.
I will now restrain you until the proper authorities are able to arrive.
Overkill
Hey, shit, if you have to, pop a kneecap.
holstered his gun and cracked the knuckles of his own mechanically augmented arm.
Better robots than you have tried. Let's see what you got.
Overkill sprang towards Ship and hammered his fist into the suit's head. Ship stumbled backwards again, but not even a mark was left in the armor. Overkill wrapped his arm around the suit's neck and flung his
Add a frickin' mantium. That shit does not break. Hell, that shit is so good, Ultron uses it for his main body.
body over Ship's shoulder. He ripped the suit down to the ground and slammed its back into the cement. He jumped up and started stomping his boot into Ship's head.
I would appreciate if you would stop resisting.
Ship swung an arm up to grab Overkill, but he just flipped backwards, landing on the ground and immediately grabbing Ship's foot. He tore the suit off the ground and spun it around in a
Okay, so this is a splash piece. It's just being drawn in a separate areas. So instead of just being all at once, we all see it different. Like this is Evolva, Keto, and the Pikachu Xenomorph. Then there will be Bustar with his weapon and Overkill, ending with the Vita. Oh, why did I spoil
then
that?
Hurled Chip at the fence wall to Biome X. As Aviva was picking herself up, she watched in fright as Chip was getting nowhere and trying to apprehend Overkill. They needed to get that suit on Bustar so it could use its full strength. But looking over at the fence to Biome X, Aviva got an even bigger fright. While it was subtle and nearly invisible, she could make out the drooling jaws of a pale, towering creature. She got a chill looking at it, but hoped it was staying well trapped on the other side of the fence. She pulled herself up just as Danny was reaching the little Ketovadis. He whistled 4 times in a specific pattern, and a ship up above them all briefly decloaked, revealing itself. A black metal staple, like the ones pinning Vada, but a bit smaller, shot down from it right into Danny's hand. Keto was still trying to break loose one of the staples holding her father, as the hunter lunged down to clamp Keto into the ground too. Thankfully, Aviva had gotten right up behind him and...
Okay, so this is meant to be Keto, yet it does not look anything like the pennant, Vada.
...swung a metal-bladed forearm at his back. He saw her coming, ducked under it, and swiped his foot under her legs, knocking her to the ground once again. Luckily, that caught Keto's attention. The offspring leapt onto the hunter's back and bit into his neck.
Yes!
Danny yelled out in pain, swinging his glowing stump arm at the creature. It hit, but didn't even make Keto let go. The creature slashed her bladed tail relentlessly across the hunter's body, tearing into his flesh, sending blood shooting everywhere. Keto then stabbed her tail right through the hunter's chest. Aviva was just stunned, seeing how viciously Keto had fought.
Good
the
job,
hunter collapsed to the ground. The hooded hunter holding Bustar was distracted enough by this that Bustar was able to thrust his body backwards and tackle the hunter. They both dropped to the ground, and Bustar, still bound, managed to chomp his teeth into the hunter's arm, forcing him to release his hold on the rope. That loosened it enough for Bustar to rip his arms free and grab the hunter by the face. He slammed his head twice into the ground, then hurled him at the corpse of the still bleeding Skull Xenofiend. The hunter landed in a pool of its sizzling acid blood and started shrieking in pain.
Oh, that's painful!
Bustar jumped up and flared his clawed hands, snarling at Overkill, who was still faring surprisingly well against Chip. You know, you should feel lucky Ship is here, Heian. I'd kill you a lot slower without my emotional support companion watching. Overkill chuckled.
No, that's real tough talk from a guy who's famously gone soft. So soft that I think even our old
soft on animals.
Man is getting squishy along with ya.
Bustar squinted at him. What are you talking
Oh shit, they all brothers.
about? Overkill sneered.
Ain't been to see him in a while, huh, Busty? Well, the former warlord Kahorgoth has put a hold on all his sieges, invasions, and assaults. I went to him after I busted out of the New Sorrow prison, and he tried to talk me into giving up my bounty hunting. Said I should take a closer look at how you were living, brother.
Bustar was baffled and taken aback by what Overkill was saying. That can't be right.
Well, it is, and I wasn't having it. I can't abide the fiercest warlord in the universe going soft, so I figured slaughtering his favorite son might shake him up a bit. That's why I made sure the head of security couldn't make it in today. I needed you on world for this little soiree.
Damn.
Bustar was still unsure if he believed what was being said about the man who'd kidnapped him and raised him to be a violent warrior, but he didn't have
Thanos' backstory. A frickin' course.
time to think about it, as he heard one of the brackets holding down Vada finally breaking loose. The full-size Ketovadis' tail was free, and in a single swipe it slashed apart another of the staples, then another, and finally the fourth.
Freedom!
It leapt up, but rubbed its head gently against its child. Aviva backed away from it, still shaking being so close to the creature. Thankfully, it quickly turned its attention to Overkill. Ship's suit was breaking apart into pieces and clamping on to Bustar's body now that he was free from the rope.
Oh, hell yes.
Overkill saw this happening and chuckled.
Well, this is getting real interesting, folks. My
Dude literally is getting an Iron Man suit-up animation out of this.
crew is dead, the big kitty is free, and Busty's getting all suited up. Not looking so good for yours truly, but then again, everyone loves a good underdog. So let's see if introducing a little more chaos into this party will give old Overkill the edge he needs to claw back the win.
He whistled 3 times, then pointed his revolver at the fence to Biome X. A laser pointer shone from it against the wall. The ship above decloaked once again, and a missile shot from it straight at that wall.
Oh,
Aviva's
no.
jaw trembled as the bomb exploded against the fence, instantly bursting a massive hole in it and sending metal and concrete debris shooting across the yard. Surprisingly, Keto leapt up onto her shoulder and whipped her tail in front of Aviva's face to shield her eyes.
Aww.
It was nerve-wracking having its blood-soaked tail so close to her face, but its desire to help
I mean, that's gross, but aww.
her was heartwarming. That feeling didn't last long, though, as Aviva felt the stomp of a towering xenomorph lumbering into the yard. Its body was nearly invisible at first, but slowly came into clarity as it approached, and revealed a light gray Tyrannosaurus-like xenomorph. As if that wasn't bad enough, this beast wasn't the only creature clawing its way out of Biome X to greet them.
Oh, is that gonna be the Pikachu one then? Good start for the splash.
Quick
Next.
interruption from non-canonical Overkill to say that if you want to color some of Popcrust's critters
Non-canonical, okay.
yourself, you should snatch up the Popcrust Studios Dragons coloring book. Amazon is full of AI-generated coloring books with some real janky art in them. So if you want a coloring book that you know was made by a real flesh and blood human being, then you've come to the right place. Or if you want more stories almost as epic as this one, despite seriously lacking me showing up, you can grab Mytholethal or Vigilance, which both got full color art along with them. Links in the description. Now let's get back to more me.
Still awesome.
Overkill leapt backwards from Bustar towards the...
And now we're gonna actually see the Overkill submissions that led to possibly the artwork that we just saw. That guy has a spine.
Xenomorphs, and astoundingly, the creatures didn't even seem to acknowledge him. It was like Heian was invisible to the Xenos. Unfortunately, Bustar wasn't. Great. You're probably still...
That was a T-Rex. I just saw a T-Rex.
Grouchy about the last go, huh, Endomorph? The dinosaur-like Xeno sprang forward,
Endomorph.
fangs first. Thankfully, Bustar had his new suit almost completely on and managed to catch the creature's jaws. He held it back, even as the creature's tongue sprang forward and smashed into his chest. Bustar clearly felt the thuds, but the suit was keeping him safe. Then, a four-legged yellow xenomorph sprang in from the biome,
There's the Picamorph.
with electricity bursting off its body. Oh, Picamorph.
Hey, Picamorph! I was right as well!
Hey, Jens, you'll back off, I'm kinda busy here. The creature picked up astounding speed and tackled into Bustar.
Ooh, and Bustar's weapon. Okay.
It only managed to bump him sideways, but that
Well, we kind of already got a preview. Oh, no, wait. Did we get a preview? No, I don't think we actually got a preview of
made his
it
grip
last
on the
time.
Indo's jaw awkward, and the beast managed to smash him down into the ground. Bustar
Nope,
shoved
he
the
did.
creature's head away, but then was tackled again by the yellow Xeno, and he tumbled along the concrete, crashing into a pole of the tattered fence. Aviva turned to Vada, who was just staring at her with its young on her shoulder. Aviva was still trembling as it stared at her, but she looked over at Bustar and saw Heian sauntering up towards him, cracking his mechanical knuckles, still being totally ignored by the Xenos. Aviva looked at Vada again. He was clearly more focused on his young than helping Bustar. As terrified as she was of the creature, she couldn't just watch Bustar get ganged up on. "Vada!" she yelled, surprising the creature. Go help Bustar! I'll protect your offspring, but you have to go, he needs you!" The beast lurched its face closer to her and sniffed. Aviva wanted to back away desperately, but instead, she leaned closer too.
Hey, there you
The
go.
Kitovada stared for another moment, then nodded with a snort. It sprang off the ground right towards Overkill. Bustar had managed
I'm
to
pretty sure it's like, you have my respect, even though I do still want to model you.
lift the yellow xenomorph over his head and hold it in the path of the Endomorph, who seemed reluctant to chomp at one of its own kind to get to Bustar. Overkill took a quick step forward, swinging his augmented arm for Bustar's stomach. Before he could strike, the Kitovadis tackled him to the ground and instantly chomped into the same shoulder Bustar had bitten earlier. In a millisecond, though, Overkill had snatched the beast's jaws and was holding it off from tearing right through him.
Alright, kitty, show old Overkill everything you got.
Oh,
The
here we go.
Kitovadis tried biting down harder, but Overkill was managing to hold it off. It swung its bladed tail around for a swipe, and, astoundingly, Overkill swung his own jaw to the side and caught the tail in his teeth.
Damn,
He then managed
that's
to hurl
impressive.
his body over and get on top of the Kitovadis. At the same time, the Endomorph was swiping its massive tail at Bustar. He just barely managed to leap over it while still holding the struggling, sparking Xeno. It was doing all it could to electrocute him, but the attacks had no effect on the beast armor. Aviva knew Bustar needed more help. She suddenly noticed that a few feet away was Bustar's staff weapon. She snatched it up off the ground, then looked at Keto on her shoulder. Okay, as much as I hate xenomorphs, we can handle one of them together, right? The creature chirped and nodded. Aviva snorted. Well,
I mean, it's thankfully only a Pikachu, so as long as it's not, oh fuck, it's level 100. I'm joking, we don't know what level it is. Be careful though.
You've lied to me before, but I'll trust you anyway. Bustar, send it our way. She waved his staff at him. He nodded. Ship, talk her through using the pyrogalv. He hurled the sparking Xeno over. It flopped through the air but landed on its feet, facing right towards her. Keto leapt off her shoulder, leering at the Xeno. Ship's voice suddenly spoke into her earpiece again.
The weapon you are holding is Bustar's pyrogalv. There is a red button that will spray fire for as long as you are holding it. It is also pressure sensitive and will shoot flames at a range of 25 to 200 feet, depending on how hard you push. The blue button controls the electric input and output. If you are about to be shocked by this or any other creature, simply tap the button twice, holding it on the second tap to absorb electricity in the air around you. To shoot electricity...
Before Ship could further elaborate, the sparking Xeno ducked its head down, aiming its smooth skull and ears towards Keto. A massive volt of electricity exploded off it towards the little Keto Vadis. Aviva dove down next to her and tapped, then held the button. Aviva's whole body tensed, feeling some of the electricity, but most of it was sucked straight into the staff.
I appreciate your protective instincts,
Ship said.
Though I feel it important to inform you that the Keto Vadis is immune to harm from electricity.
She nodded. Right, but
forgot that.
I bet Overkill isn't. Keto leapt off the ground onto the back of the electric Xeno as Aviva looked over at Bustar. Overkill had managed to hurl the Keto Vadis off him, and was readying up to be attacked by it again. Vada, handle the big cuddly one, Bustar said, nodding up at the endomorph. The Keto Vadis clearly wanted another bite at Overkill, but took its order and sprang off the ground, nearly mimicking how its young had landed on the yellow Xeno. Bustar let his helmet open and float just behind his head. You and me, Hayen. I don't care what Dad's up to, but you don't get to come here and slaughter a bunch of innocent and adorable critters without getting torn apart yourself.
I don't see how you find them adorable.
Brother, I'm gonna make you wish Pops had
That's just me, though.
sold you off to the Games Master instead of old Harry Boy.
Bustar sprang forward and swung his fist at Overkill, who swung his own metal fist up to meet it. Both clanged in the air, but then an explosion burst from Overkill's knuckles. It pushed Bustar back slightly, but sent Hayen tumbling backwards. He sprang off his hands, flipped over, and landed on his feet.
Whoa! What a rush! What a show!
What was that?
He ripped his gun off his belt again and fired shots directly for Bustar's head. Bustar ducked and dove around the shots as he charged closer to Overkill. His target looked eager for him to get close. But he didn't see Aviva aiming up the pyrogalv. She shot a beam of lightning from it just before Bustar got close and struck Hayen dead on, making his entire body tense up and stop firing his own weapon.
Yes!
Bustar took the opportunity to smash his fist right into Hayen's snout, then kick him full force in the stomach. Not bad, Orvad. Thanks for the hand, Bustar said dryly. Overkill tumbled back across the ground out of the line of Aviva's electricity.
Unimpressive little 1-2 from the two of you, but being double-teamed will just make my victory all the more impressive.
You're not gonna win.
He kept firing at Terminax and kept an eye out for more electricity coming his way. Ship spoke as Bustar weaved around the shots.
Bustar, I'd like to advise that you put your helmet back on to ensure your safety.
I bet you would, Ship. I get that you're right, but like it or not, I want Hayen to see my face when I gut him.
I understand that you are very angry with your brother, but if I may make a suggestion, I believe there is an outcome here that is both less violent than your current intention, but will simultaneously be even more infuriating than death for Hayen.
As Bustar listened and continued to brawl, the Keto Vadis was tearing its way along the endomorph's back. The creature swiped its tail at Vada, but the lethal cat swung its own tail up and dueled with its own...
The only thing I could think about that would be, like, imprisonment. Like, permanently having to walk here in this facility, serving all these animals.
Blade, keeping itself safe as it tore acidic chunks out of the xenomorph. Keto kept looking over at her parent to see how he was fighting, and seemed to be replicating some of his moves, though she was a fair bit less graceful. The sparking Xeno managed to smack Keto off its back. Its body then started charging up with more electricity, and it sprang backwards. It was about to charge towards Keto for a tackle, but as soon as it started running, Aviva shot a stream of fire straight into its face. The Xeno shook its head as it ran and choked on flames. It tumbled over itself, rolling to a stop. Aviva ran up and skidded along the ground next to it, stabbing the sparking end of the pyrogalv into the creature's back and tapping the buttons to absorb. The Xeno shrieked as electricity was sucked out of its body into the staff. It swung its tail towards Aviva. Fighting through her fear, she sprang one of her forearm blades into its path, blocking the swipe. Unfortunately, it swiped its head up and smashed her in the nose. It then sprang on top of her. It spread its maw wide, and Aviva could see the tinier mouth inside that most xenomorphs had. That little mouth was about to spring out and crack her skull, but Keto leapt at the creature's head and knocked it off course. The little mouth smashed painfully into the cement next to Aviva. She then yanked one of her arms up next to the creature's arm and popped her other blade out. She sliced right through its arm and immediately rolled away, just barely missing the spurt of acid that fell from its wounded flesh. Aviva held her arm away from herself carefully.
You can do this, Aviva!
As acid dripped from her blade. As she did, she saw Overkill charging up to Bustar, leaping at his brother and hammering his metal fist right into Bustar's skull. Bustar stumbled back, dazed. He held his arm in front of his head and swiped a metal-coated tail towards Overkill, who was coming in for another swing. Overkill stomped the tail down into the ground, then swung the butt of his gun over Bustar's hands to try and hit the top of his head again. Bustar snatched the weapon out of the air and held it in front of him. But then, using his metal fist, Overkill punched his own weapon as hard as he could. It snapped in half, and another explosion burst between them. Shrapnel from the weapon stabbed into Bustar's face. He stumbled back and pulled a piece out of his cheek. He squinted through blood to see Overkill's jacket burning, and pieces of the gun stabbed into his chest as well. But he was just laughing.
Who do you think can survive more explosions, Busty? I'd be willing to bet on me, even with those fancy shiny tights you got on.
You're snarging nuts, Hayen.
Oh, not nuts, brother, just a little overkill.
He whistled 4 times with an
damn you, that was funny.
An extra long one to finish. Suddenly, the ship above them decloaked one last time and soared down right towards Bustar. The vehicle was practically half the size of the yard they were brawling in. It tore chunks off the top of the already tattered fence. It smashed right down on top of the Ketovatus and Indomorph, then onto both Bustar and Overkill.
Uh-oh. This is even more interesting now. But now it's time to finally see about...
Aviva stumbled back.
Vita and the Dominus morph. I'm sorry, my brain is not wanting to walk right now.
Just away from the crash, but soon the ship exploded and sent her hurtling backwards into the opposite fence. She smashed into it and collapsed to the ground, with her head shaking and buzzing. She could feel herself drifting in and out of consciousness. But then, saw in the explosion, Keto had been disoriented too, and was lying face down on the ground.
Oh no.
With the Pika morph charging up behind her. The Xeno lunged onto Keto's back and pinned her tail down. It swung its own tail up over its head, then down right towards the little creature. Without hesitation, Aviva scrambled forwards, thrusting her blade towards the creature's head, tackling against it with all her might. She clenched her eyes shut, feeling herself tackle over the beast, but also feeling acid spurt across her thigh, and the Xeno's blade piercing into her side. She groaned in pain but forced her arm blade deeper into the beast's flesh as she lay on top of it. A few seconds of writhing and struggling later, it finally stopped moving. When it did, she leapt off it, gritting her teeth, as she smelled and felt the sizzling acid against her leg. Her shaking hands moved down to her side, gripping the Xeno's tail pierced through her. Taking a deep breath, she yanked it out, screeching in pain as she did.
Ooh, bad idea.
Thankfully, the burning in her leg didn't get worse. She looked down to see there were only a few small burns. They ached horribly, but at least they weren't going to make her lose a limb. Keto ran up to her leg and started rubbing its head against her, clearly seeing how much pain Aviva was in. Thanks, Keto, but I'm not the one we need to worry about, she said, staring at the smoldering shipwreck. She could hear metal shifting and moving, but wasn't sure if it was Bustar coming free. The suit should have protected him, right? Finally,
except he didn't have the damn helmet on.
A massive burning propulsion jet was shoved aside. Unfortunately, what came out from under it was the Indomorph. Aviva's mind scrambled to dozens of different options of what to do, though she didn't need an answer. The creature was badly wounded, and not a second after it stomped free from the crash, the Ketovatus sprang out beneath it and chomped right into its neck. The Indo let out a pained shriek and collapsed to the ground, held down by the Keto Vadis's bite and tearing claws.
That's how you do
Aviva's
it, Vada.
heart settled for just a second, but then she heard.
Well, that's a tough kitty right there, huh, folks?
Uh-oh.
Overkill was bloodied and battered, and yet was strutting away from the crash as if he was in full health.
I might have to call in another 3 ships just to put a dent in that thing, huh? Or how about I just nuke this whole world and forget the bounty? Though I do still want to take that little pup for myself.
Aviva stepped forwards, putting her leg between Keto and Overkill. Wincing through her pain, she gripped the pyro galv with her finger hovering over the flame button. I'll take your head before I let you take Keto. Overkill grinned in surprise, then did a little skip hearing that.
Oh, little Orvad's got some fire in her veins. That is you, right, Evivaria Orvad? You know, your Gramp said if I come across you, I gotta give you one last chance to turn yourself back over to the family. If not, I get to gut you like whoever else gets in my way. It's all the same to me, but which would you really rather? Coming home or taking a permanent power nap?
Aviva noticed some of the rubble moving behind Overkill, but kept her focus on him. That's an easy choice. I'd rather die living my life my way than suffer through another day of the life they say I'm supposed to live.
Hell yeah.
She spun the pyro galv around and shot electricity at him. He sprang over the bolt and landed right next to Aviva, smacking the weapon out of her hand. He snatched her by the neck in one hand, and as Keto swung her tail at Overkill, he snatched it in his other, hurling the creature aside.
I've heard a lot of folks' final words, but those are some of my new favorites, Orvad. I might actually remember you.
He swung back his claw to swipe at her neck. She sliced her arm blade across his chest, but he barely noticed. He swiped his claw right for her, but then one of Bustar's gauntlets flew over and clamped over his hand, stopping it in midair. The greaves from the armor shot over and clamped over his legs, then shot out a burst of propulsion, shooting him backwards, still carrying Aviva. More of the armor clamped around his body as he was forced to spin around and face Bustar, now with the helmet firmly clamped around his head. I ain't so stubborn that I'll let a ship hit me without protecting my dome, Hayen. With Overkill held in place, Bustar grabbed his brother's fingers and wrenched them off of Eva's neck so she could drop. Just as she was freed, the endomorph was taking its final breath and collapsing to the ground. The Keto Vadis ran over to its offspring, who leapt onto her father's back, as the creature then lumbered right towards Overkill.
Oh,
you've lost, Overkill.
What a way to go this'll be. Torn to shreds by one of the fiercest creatures in the universe. Not bad if I do say so myself.
Bustar looked up at the creature as it was getting close and said, Vada, heal. The creature looked surprised and snarled, displeased, but sat down. Bustar looked back at Overkill. Sorry, Hayen, but you're not croaking today, much as I want to tear you up for all the adorable critters you let die. Aviva was a bit confused as Bustar looked longingly at the deceased xenomorphs around them. Did he actually think those things were cute?
Yes.
My guess is you rigged up your ships to nuke this place the second your heart stops beating. If you're dying, it's gonna be an overkill death, right?
What can I say, Busty? If I go out, I want to go out with a bang.
Of course you want to.
He nodded with a smirk.
You
monster. I figured. But luckily, Ship had an even better idea for what to do with you. I wasn't thrilled about the favor I had to call in, but at least with security down, it's easy for her to get here.
Ooh.
Ship spoke through the suit for all to hear.
Bustar, your guests have successfully entered the dimension and are aboard my core vessel.
Haha! It's gonna be the Shop Gang!
Guests? Plural? Whatever, thanks, Ship. Bring them down. See, Hayen, going out in a blaze of glory is probably exactly what you want, and going to any normal prison is obviously out of the question because you'll keep breaking out. Thankfully, someone I know has mentioned a special prison. One that'll be particularly infuriating for you.
The Orca Foundation.
Bustar's freighter ship flew down from the sky and landed on the opposite side of the yard from the crashed vessel. The bay doors slid open, and out stepped a gorgeous woman in very elegant, old-fashioned armor. Hello, Bustar. It is good to see you, though I must say, if this is all an excuse for you to see me again, you should know I am well and truly over you. This is purely a business transaction.
Yeah, he would definitely laugh and just be like, don't worry about it. Look around. This is business as well.
He rolled his eyes. Uh-huh. Well, glad to hear it, Vasilia, but I appreciate you coming so quick. This guy right here is the package. Aviva didn't realize she was doing it, but she was just staring at this woman. The woman noticed Aviva staring and glanced over at her, immediately making Aviva blush and look away. It is all right. You can stare if you feel so compelled. Many do. She said it like a backhanded
Apologies.
jab at Bustar. Overkill looked her up and down and whistled.
You are a tall drink of water if I ever did see one, lady. If you're sending me off with her, Busty, I think you're not so familiar with what a punishment really is.
Vasilia smirked.
She's not the punishment.
I like this one. Why are we locking him up in the RAS Foundation? Bustar snarled. For being an actual psychopath. My brother here has murdered tens of thousands of innocent people and critters.
Possibly millions.
Vasilia shrugged. Alright, that does sound like satisfactory reason. Speaking of brothers, I am surprised this has not come up in our previous interactions, but do you also happen to have a brother by the name of Harold the Herald?
Oh.
Buster and Overkill looked at each other,
Herald the Herald, huh?
then back at her. Ain't that the goofy name Harold started calling himself after he was bought by the Games Master? Well, yes, but I ain't actually worked for Ms. Ludham for a while now, though I do indeed.
Oh, shit, that it is. Wasn't expecting him. Oh, damn. Hey, Herald.
He'd still go by that goofy name. A chipper voice chimed from the doorway to the ship. Out skipped a short, orange-skinned man with a floating hat over his head and glowing pink amorphous arms. Hey there, brothers!
That's
Long time
cool.
no see. Couldn't hardly believe you've known Miss Kuznets here for so long, and we never put together that she was a mutual pal of ours, Bustar. Bustar's teeth were firmly clamped shut, and his lip was trembling in rage. Overkill noticed and said,
Come on, Busty, let me out of here and I'll help you take his legs this time.
Harold skipped up next to Vasilia.
Let me out and I'll help you take his legs. Good God.
Oh, come on, Bustar, you ain't still mad about the H-224 gorilla incident, are ya? I get being mad back then, 'cause you told me stop murdering children, and I didn't listen. But I'd say taking my arms off was pretty sufficient punishment, right? Besides,
Damn, so that's why he has amorphous arms. Okay.
I've turned over a new leaf. I'm even doing time in the RAS Foundation myself. They're real good at teaching folks why murdering kids is a bad thing to do. Harold's honor,
no
I ain't
shit.
never doing nothing like that again. Allies of mine captured Harold while on a mission to try and take down the so-called Games Master, Elvis Ludham, some time ago. Originally, Harold was our prisoner, but since spending time with our group and now having done time in the RAS Foundation, he is
How
well and
much
truly
time?
becoming upstanding and mostly trustworthy member of the team. Perhaps that makes him sufficient proof that we will be able to turn your other brother here around as well.
I wouldn't hold your breath, lady. Ain't a prison in the multiverse that can keep me locked up, let alone convince me to give up being the most overkill bounty hunter alive.
We'll see.
Well, that just means you're going to be
We'll
a
see.
great test of the Foundation's security and counseling resources, Hayen. Plus, it'll be nice to have one of my siblings around. Gonna be like the good old days, but, you know, minus all the murder and whatnot. Bustar took a slow,
Yeah.
agitated breath. All right.
Okay, are we sure this is a good idea? Hello? Anyone? No? Well, alright, send him off.
Eight, this is a lot to process, but if you're seriously gonna have two of my siblings locked up at this place, then I'm gonna need to come and see it for myself. After I clean up everything here, that is.
That would make sense.
Harold, it's really something to see you again. I'm here, brother. Come and visit soon, will ya? Aviva felt like she'd been sitting in on some weird family drama that she didn't understand. Thankfully, it
Completely.
ended as Bustar and Vasilia got Overkill bound in different bonds, so Bustar could get his suit back. As they were wrapping up, Keto sprang away from her father to Aviva and planted herself on Aviva's shoulder again.
Aww.
She was still aching from her wounds, but having Keto rubbing up against her was at least a distraction from the pain. Vada even sidled up next to her, staring at her skeptically once again. This time, Aviva wasn't so afraid. She slowly
This is
raised her
nice.
hand over the big Keto Vadis's head. It watched her, but didn't do anything. She lowered her hand and gently pet its head. After
Yes.
a moment, he started purring. Maybe the Keto Vadis weren't so scary after all. At least,
They're just big old kitty cats.
not when they liked you. Bustar said his goodbyes, and the unusual guests teleported off to the RAS Foundation in another dimension. Bustar shook his head in confusion and surprise. Never thought Harold would end up going to a rehabilitation place like that. Honestly, I just agreed to send Hayen there because I thought it'd be punishment enough for him having to deal with people trying to make him better. Never really considered
Maybe.
it might actually work. Kinda hoping it doesn't, to be honest, and he just rots in there, but as long as he stays locked up for once, that's really all that matters.
That would be the
Bustar also
ultimate
knew
goal.
he needed to look into what
Well, no, ultimate goal would be, of course, redemption.
Overkill had said about their father. Was Cahorgoth seriously turning on his old warlord ways? Bustar turned to Aviva.
Wouldn't hurt to call, you never know.
Out of everything, you've impressed me today, Orvad. I think you're gonna do good here. She smiled proudly. Thank you. Did I impress you enough to stop calling me Orvad? You seem like you don't like being associated with stuff your family has done too. He sighed and nodded. Yeah, fair enough, Aviva. Now you better be ready for some overtime, because we've got a lot of cleanup to do here. It ended up being a very long first week at the Ishkonigan Major Nature Preservation.
Oh, yeah.
One where Aviva spent much of her time working right alongside Bustar and both the Keto Vadis. It wasn't how she'd wanted her first week to go, but it was exactly what she'd needed.
It's
Just
better
as
than
she'd
most.
hoped, Aviva was hired full-time. And even ended up putting her old hunting skills to work, doing some off-world tracking missions with her new unexpected ally.
Nice. This is actually kind of an interesting story, and all in all, a perfect roundup and wrap-up for Evita. She went from being a bounty hunter to working and with one of the best bounty hunters in the universe, but no longer as a hunter, but a savior. Yeah, whatever.
I really like this, and I think I might do something like it again in the future, where I give people 2 or 3 months to do a bunch of different episode prompts, and then release it consecutively as one big story, and then maybe even turn that into like a Goosebumps length short novella, and release it
that'd be
like
good.
I'm releasing things like Mytholethal, Vigilance, Fear of the Demon Hunters, all as books. Let me know what you think of that idea in the comments.
I like
anyway,
the
huge
idea.
thank you to everybody who submitted for this episode and the people chosen for today. Dominic Tomlinson, Luke Johnson, Sawyer,
Nice.
Odysseor,
Good.
and Pango Paints.
Nice.
The next community redraw, as I said in the last 2 episodes, is famous animated and cartoon characters turned into fantasy armors. Very excited to see the submissions coming in for that. And besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive
or
or
inspiring note.
And the thought I want to leave people with today is an idea to keep in mind around goal setting and goal achievement.
Oh,
And
yeah?
that is this idea that you can almost look at it like there is some set number of failures that you're going to have to go through before you succeed at whatever you're going after. You don't get to know what that number is, but that can help motivate you to keep going through failures. Keep learning and growing from them, knowing that there is a limited number of them before you finally succeed.
That
and who knows,
is
maybe
good
you're only
thinking.
one failure away from that success right now. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday, where hopefully my voice is going to sound normal again.
Hey man, well just remember, take a break, relax, and always have a cup of tea. Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.